All right, so we are on the second Proco podcast. Thank you guys for joining me. If you guys just want to say your names and your pronouns and what grade you are.
Hi, I'm Bree. I'm a senior and I use he, him pronouns.
I'm Grace. I'm a freshman and I use she, her pronouns.
And I also use she, her pronouns. All right, so today what we're going to talk about is I just basically wanted to have a conversation with you guys about the recent firing of a high school teacher for refusing to use a transgender student's new pronouns. What are your thoughts on the incident? I know I sent you the article about it. Did you read the article?
Sort of. I skimmed it and it was very interesting and made me very angry.
Yeah, I read it.
Yeah, he said that he was willing to compromise and say the student's new name, but even then it's a teacher acting horribly to a student, and then he threw it back to religion and saying his Christianity refused or wouldn't allow him to use the new student's pronouns. Have you guys ever faced anything like this?
Yeah, at my church, in the town that I used to live in, there were all these older folks that refused to call my family member who is transgender, who transitioned when they were 4. They refused to use their new pronouns in their new name. And we couldn't leave the church because my parents worked there and they were in a contract that they had to stay there for at least a year before they could quit. So it was very interesting. We ended up staying there, and it worked out because a lot of people left, but a lot of new people came, and they were very nice.
Well, that's good. Out with the bad and with the new.
Yeah.
That is also not how that saying goes. Sorry. So, have you ever gone through a situation like this?
Not this specifically, but the church went behind my back to tell my parents that I'm a lesbian, which is so wrong in so many ways. And obviously I'm not a lesbian, I'm a trans guy. So, I still need to come out to my family, and I know that they will definitely not approve of me transitioning, and I know that the church will come up with some bull on, what the Bible says and, all this anti-LGBT stuff.
Yeah. And then Grace actually brought in 2 books for me about, the first one is This I Know, A Simple Biblical Defense for the LGBTQ Christians. And then the other one is Rethinking Our Misuse of the Bible on Homosexuality, which I will definitely look at. You guys should go check it out too. But it basically just talks about homophobic people always fall back on either religion or that's how I was raised and stuff like that, when the Bible doesn't necessarily actually I don't really know that much. I haven't.
Well, a lot of them have just been translated wrong.
Yeah.
Because they're originally about rape and child molesting, and they translated them in the wrong context, and so that's how it all got mixed up. And then people use the newer versions because you don't want to use the King James version all the time.
Yeah. And that's insane. That is such a common misconception today.
Especially with the story of Sodom, when the angels, do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay, well.
I don't know.
I'm sure it's in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's in Genesis, and basically, there are these male angels who visit, someone in the city of Sodom, and a bunch of men basically go up to where they're staying, and they're like, something along the lines of, let us in so we may get to know them, which is basically a weird translation of, we want to have sex with you. And the angels...
Whoa, didn't see that coming. Hold on. That took a turn.
Yeah, it doesn't, we may get to know them, doesn't sound like sex, but... Yeah, but this is basically where the term sodomy comes from, but, the men came into the house and sexually assaulted the angels. And then, God saw what was happening, and he, basically, told this specific family to get out, and you can't look back at Sodom being burned by all the comets of fire. So,
comets of fire?
it just sent... basically.
Yeah, the comments of fire.
Yeah. Like God just destroyed Sodom, basically.
Yeah.
And the family got out. So what people like my church like to do is take that story and make it that God burned down a town because some people had some gay sex, even though it was rape.
Oh, yeah. And that's, more often than not, that's what it is. It's like the translation being different, and it was translated, I don't even know how many times.
Yeah.
But that's insane. And then another thing he said during the hearing is that not only was it against his religion, but also he believed that he was being coerced into using the students' pronouns, and it was an infraction on his First Amendment right.
Well, then I get to call you Mr. Poopy Butt, and your pronouns are microwave toaster oven.
Yeah, exactly. No, that claim is 100% false. And also, he is the authority figure in this situation, and a student has gone through a big change in their life, and the last thing that they need is an authority figure at school talking down to them using their incorrect pronouns, and like that's just awful. And I honestly I can't believe that it's happening. But it was at a high school called West Point in Virginia, and so I feel like it might be a conservative area, which yeah, I don't know. It's so crazy living in Chapel Hill. And, like, hearing about stuff like this, because it's so liberal here.
Yeah. When we moved here, I was, like, very surprised at all the safe space posters in the classrooms and everything, because at my old school, there were multiple, like, gay people and transgender kids who just didn't want to come out because they knew that the teachers weren't going to respect them, and they knew that they were going to get bullied, and they might even be murdered, because in that town, anything can happen, and...
Yeah, no, that's insane. And then have you ever faced anything at the school? I mean, like, I totally agree with you. There's signs everywhere, but, like, not being transgender, I don't know what it's like day to day.
Well, everyone's experiences are different, but I remember specifically in sophomore year, towards the end, I was in my chemistry class, and I came out to this one guy. I would just, like, he sat in front of me in chemistry, so I was like, okay, yeah, sure. So I told him, and then he said that I need to be careful because I'm going to be murdered in an alleyway and no one's going to look for me.
Yeah, people said that at my school too, like threatening all of the gay people and transgender people that were out, which was like 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So it was very sad for them because they had to change schools multiple times, and eventually they moved out of the district because it just got so bad.
Has your family member experienced stuff like this? Have they ever come home and, like, talked about it?
Well, it was a fabulous time when the local news station just rolled up to the elementary school and flashed their cameras into the car pickup line trying to get a story about them, and it was while they were transitioning, so they had like the awkward haircut where they're growing out their hair and everything. It was very frightening because we didn't know if they were going to try and harm her or what, because they were getting very close. Yeah. And thankfully, one of our neighbors that knew pulled them into their car and locked the doors, and they drove off.
At elementary school age?
Yeah.
Like... And that was in Fayetteville, North Carolina?
Yes.
Dude, it's like, it's happening in our own state, and, like, it's insane to me, like, the amount, like, this is, like, not talked about at all.
Yeah.
Like, it's talked about in the sense, like, casually, I feel like in Chapel Hill High School, like, oh, like, transgender, like if something comes up, but, like, I feel like we need to educate, or not we, but, like, I feel like students need to be educated on this topic. He believes not using somebody's preferred pronouns shouldn't be enforced in a school setting or on a state level. He believes that it's like also like an infraction on his like First Amendment rights. And I've seen many interviews with him where he's gone on and said like, I'm not homophobic, but and that's always the part that I think gets it. Have you seen him?
Yeah, I watched one video where he was doing an interview for like BBC or something.
Oh yeah, the news interview.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think I'm gonna show that.
He tried to flip it on her and say that if you can come at me with all your trans, like, supporting them, then why can't I come and say all these bad things and, like, enforce this and
because it's negative and you're putting negative energy.
Are you talking about she was like, how does your freedom of speech overcome a trans woman's right to not be offended?
Yeah.
Okay. That one was the First Amendment is a really tricky one.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech, and I have to phrase this carefully, but freedom of speech always kind of borders this line between like respect and disrespect, and you have a right to not respect someone and you have a right to respect someone, but when you're not calling a trans person by their preferred pronouns, you are not only disrespecting them, but you're actually causing them like
pain
and dysphoria. And gender and body dysphoria are actually like diagnosed conditions that you need to transition. So not using someone's preferred pronouns. Also, I don't like how they're called preferred pronouns because it's like they're not my preferred pronouns. Like they're my pronouns. They're my pronouns. Like this is my preferred gender. It's my gender. And adding that preferred in front of it just kind of makes it seem like you can take the option of saying it or not. But I feel like you really should use someone's pronouns because 40% of all transgender people attempt suicide. And 95% of those people attempt before they're 25, or 90% of them attempt before 25, according to Trevor Space. So, or the Trevor Project. So,
what is the Trevor Project?
The Trevor Project is basically this group that helps LGBTQ plus people going through hard times. So they have this 24-hour hotline that you can call, and then they have this space where you can set up an account. And
I actually do think I've heard of that.
Yeah, I'm in that, and you can basically post some issues or just whatever you want to talk about, and other people will reply. The fact that trans people, they're in a really, really tough position because someone who is in this much pain and a group of people that is so targeted and is rarely talked about, and especially in today's politics with Trump and the military and trying to, I think it was New York or New York Times. I was like, he's trying to define transgender people out of existence. Yeah. And this whole thing about the bathroom laws and trying to pause or put limits on transitioning, and the fact that conversion therapy is still legal in the United States.
And the vice president believes in it. Yeah.
Like, this is a gigantic issue for transgender people. And then people can say, oh, well, only like 3% of the population is trans or something. Yeah. First of all, I don't know where they got that number because I wasn't asked. And the census was denied by Trump, so we couldn't actually...
I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah, we couldn't say like whether or not we were gay or trans or bisexual or just queer because the entire census got denied. So we actually don't have a clear idea of the amount of trans people that are in the U.S. And the fact that in one of my classes, there can be anywhere from 1 to 3 trans people that are different, and just in my experience in my school, like, yes, we're more accepting of that and people are going to be more out about it, but if that's just happening in my classrooms, then imagine the other schools and then the entire country. Like, there's definitely more people that are not being talked about.
Well, yeah, and I think there's a lot of people that are also afraid to come out, like even like anybody in the LGBTQ community, because of the president, because of the Republican Party being so dominant in the extreme, like the extremist of the Republican Party that are like just representing hate, homophobia, all of it. So another thing I wanted to talk about is QSA. I know you guys are both members, so I wanted to just like, because I didn't know that QSA even existed before, which is horrible, and I feel so bad about it, but before Mr. Head told me about it. So could you just say what the club is and what it does?
At Club Day, I made it my top priority to find the QSA booth and sign up. Yeah. I had a really hard time finding it, but I did find it. And I think that the club can evolve into something that is well known throughout the school and something that can help many students. And it might take a month of just trying really hard, or it might take years, but it should happen eventually.
100%. I think everybody should know what it is. And what do you guys do in the club? Or what does QSA stand for, actually?
Queer Straight Alliance.
Gotcha. I should have known that. And then, like, do you guys, like, have any posters up around the school? Are there any events that you guys are working on upcoming?
Last year we tried to host a masquerade ball, and I wanted to go to it, but my parents were like, you can't go to that. And I was like, okay.
Wait, why did they say you couldn't go?
Well, they're
oh my god.
Whole thing about like being influenced by queer people and getting involved with the gay culture, and a part of me is like, guess what, Mom, it's too late. But
yeah.
It's that whole thing. But the event actually ended up getting canceled because there weren't enough people who were interested, and kind of just going into the internal homophobia in the school. So a lot of people didn't really want to be seen as like, oh my gosh, is that person gay? Or something stupid.
And it's insane to me because I don't usually, I mean, I have never like heard anything about, or like I've heard some remarks that about like pronouns and people saying that it's ridiculous about how many there are and like infinite categories lead to chaos, but I don't agree with that because I think, like, do you know the pronouns like Z? So, could you just talk a little bit about that for the people that don't know what it is?
Yeah, so it's an alternate form of they, them, so it's singular.
It's like a gender non-conforming.
Yeah, it's gender non-conforming. Yeah. And the thing about there being a bunch of genders, it's a new science, but basically, when you were in the womb, the amount of testosterone affects whether or not you're going to be a male or a female biologically, and your brain kind of develops separately from that of physically because we're all naturally female in the womb, and just
Wait, what?
Yeah,
I didn't know that was a thing.
We're all female until that amount of testosterone determines what's going to happen. Yeah, and some. Like I said, people aren't quite sure yet, but trans men end up having the white matter and brain structure more similar to cisgender men, and trans women have white matter more similar to cisgendered women. So your brain is biologically similar to the gender that you identify with, and then the effect of testosterone in the womb kind of affects that brain development.
Yeah,
and it kind of starts to blur the lines between like set female, set male, that you start having non-binary because it doesn't, like, your brain doesn't quite develop into either one of those. But like there is a science. This isn't just some bull we pulled out of our butt.
Oh obviously, yeah.
My mom explains it that it's either a girl brain inside a boy body or a boy brain inside a girl body or whatever brain inside of a whatever body. Yeah. And she taught me and my sister that it's a spectrum instead of like you have to be this or this or this.
I 100% believe that. I don't think anybody is 100% gay or 100% straight or 100% anything. Like, everybody's on this spectrum, which I know a lot of people don't agree with, but that is something that I wholeheartedly believe. How can Chapel Hill High School students better educate themselves? Like, how can, like, for the people watching this or the teachers or whoever listening to this, like, how can people better educate themselves about the transgender community and, like, correct pronouns and everything?
I haven't been here that long, but I would say that it would be a good idea for teachers and students on the first day of school to introduce themselves with their name and their pronouns, and not just...
I think it should definitely become like a general thing, you know, like something like just normal in society. You say, hi, my name is Peyton McGurk, she, like, her, like, those are my pronouns. And like Reinhold's actually, who is the leader of QSA, he signs all of his emails. I have him for a class, but he signs all of his emails. Daniel Reinhold's, he, like, him, and then the third one, but his, And I I loved that. The first time I saw it, I was like, that's literally, like, I feel like everybody should do that.
My mom has that. She has little business cards for, like, internships and stuff, and she has it in Spanish, too.
Yeah. Is there anything you guys want, like, you guys have a platform right now. Is there anything you want to say? Is there anything that your family member wanted to say that you were going to speak on behalf of them?
My family member just wanted to say that it's okay to be yourself and that you shouldn't worry about what other people think.
Yeah.
Can I say what?
Yeah.
Okay. Something... I know the school can't really do much about this, and they're going to have to go to the people who design the curriculum. But LGBT history is not taught that much. Yeah. And if at all. Like, at the very end of A Push, Mr. Campbell brought up some LGBT stuff, and I'm like, okay, I get it, because the history is more recent.
Yeah.
But in my English classes, it has always been, like, male-female sexism, and it's always been, like, different races and how they have a role in our culture and our society. Mm-hmm. But what is never talked about is LGBTQ people, because I remember in Linda Kugel's class, AP Lang, we were talking about the society that also, like, targeted men. It was like toxic masculinity. Yeah. And all the cisgendered men in the room were like, oh no, I don't feel that pressure. I don't feel like I need to be super masculine in order for people to, like, treat me okay. And I was like, I need to learn these mannerisms, and I need to learn how to stand. I need to learn how to sit. I need to learn how to cut my hair the right way, and how to dress right, and how to hide my curves, and how to lower my voice, and, like, yada 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 yada, and all the stuff that, like, I have to do without, like, hormones or surgery in order for people to see me as a guy. And even then, people still don't see me as a guy, which drives me insane. But like, we need to have this actually be talked about. Mm-hmm. And especially for, oh my gosh, I think according to the New York Times, the LGBT community is the largest target for discrimination in the U.S.
Is that right?
Yeah, because my mom talks about it all the time at home, how, like, people get fired just for being out and in the workplace because other, like, employees and, like, people that they help as their job are afraid of them, like, rubbing off on them as, like, gay and stuff, and, like, they'll make you gay.
Oh my god, I hate that. I hate that so much when people say that.
Yeah.
And also an important thing to remember is when someone of color gets bullied because of their skin tone, they can go to their parents, who typically are the same skin tone, and they can get their parents involved with the school and resolve the issue. But for people who get bullied for being queer, they usually can't go to their parents because they're not out to their parents, and they just have to keep this inside of them, and they can't tell other people that people are calling them, like, all these derogatory terms. And for me, I couldn't tell my parents that this guy told me I was going to get buried in an alleyway. Like, I couldn't say that.
I don't think we should compare hate, though, and say, like, one is, like, necessarily, like, more, even if it is, like, more discriminated than the other, like, I still feel like comparing hate, it's the hate for each.
Yeah, I'm not trying to compare. I'm definitely not trying to say that, like, this group of people has it worse than this other group of people, but I'm saying that there is a lack of a support system for this specific group of people.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, well, thank you guys both so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it, and that's it.
All right.
All right, bye.
Bye.